Great, well thanks everybody. It's always tough being in the graveyard shift, about 2:30 after lunch, everybody. So I'm hoping that this session will wake you guys up in more ways than one. So if you're falling asleep now, this is the session for you. I am the CEO of Azo and the principal engineer. So if I sound both business and tech geek at the same time, sorry, that's my job. And it's really great to see many of our partners, some of our customers attending this session today, and we really want to focus as much as we can on something that's really practical for take home. So I'm not going to talk that much about Azo today, but I am certainly going to wanting to engage with many of you afterwards. I have a very similar diagram to what Adrian just put up, but instead of being theoretical, it's actually my house. And when I think about what I have adopted in terms of the technologies that have come out over the last 5 to 7 years, I am now living and working with the transitions that we're trying to see, but I'm trying them out on myself first, and I'm sure many of you have probably done this either for yourself or in your businesses. And a lot of the things that the gentlemen have been speaking about and have been coming up in this entire conference have been incredibly relevant and certainly made me look at the way that I do things for my own life. And I want to talk about cybersecurity and how it affects things like my house, and certainly how it will affect your businesses and the greater energy economy that we're all part of. So let me give you a bit of a summary of how we're going to approach that. First, I'd like to make some bridging comments, just generally on the cybersecurity landscape and energy IoT, generally speaking. Then I want to make some comments about AEMO's AES-CSF, which is the Australian Energy Sector Cybersecurity Framework. Try to say that a few times. AES-CSF. Then I want to talk about how the Foreign Investment Review Board views security and how it affects particularly utility scale projects, but most likely how it will affect all of our projects. And we'll look at how that could affect and does affect residential and C&I projects, particularly with VPPs that have been mentioned and what those risks are. And then I want to send you home with some, what can I do today? What can I do to make a difference? What principles can I apply for that? Now, I just wanted to quickly check, because my phone, I can't actually get on to the free Wi-Fi. Can you just raise your hand if you're successfully on the free Wi-Fi right now? Yeah, good, excellent. Thank you for that. I actually have now all of your email addresses, yes, all of your content and everything, because I'm actually broadcasting the free Wi-Fi in this room from that just GPO down over there. So thank you very much. I will use that data to move my bank account in the positive direction. I really appreciate that. Thank you. That actually was a real trick that a cybersecurity trainer did on us in a room, and he literally put our names, our email addresses, and the first 2 digits of our password that we probably use for like our bank account and our Gmail and everything else, because we haven't increased our cybersecurity posture, and he actually had it. So I actually don't have it, so you can all relax now. But this is absolutely happening, and it is absolutely coming. I don't have to remind you that this topic, particularly cybersecurity, is a hot topic, and it relates to every person in this room. In fact, I don't know if many of you know this, but it's actually Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and for week number 3, I believe, it's how do you act now to stay secure? And unfortunately, because a lot of us haven't acted, now is actually too late. All you have to do is look at the headlines that are popping up, I'm sure, on your business social media and on ABC News, if you watch ABC News every night. Australia has a cybersecurity problem. I'd like to quote from the director of the Institute for Cybersecurity at the University of New South Wales. He says, businesses of all shapes and sizes are not putting sufficient thinking into their risk management of digital information. Another writer said, cybersecurity has been front page news on almost a daily basis over the past month. While obviously not ideal for the companies in question, that's an understatement, it has spurred conversation and significantly increased the focus on cyber as a topic. So I'm hoping that you've arrived today with this all fresh in your mind, as Doris rightfully said. And if you had missed it, Medibank in the last week, I'm actually a Medibank customer. This affects me and my family directly. If anyone tried to go to anyone that's part of the AICD, if you went to the Cybersecurity Principles event update, or you tried to earlier this week, you'll notice that it actually never happened. And cybersecurity actors were actually dropping parasitic links and these dangerous links into the chat where everybody was asking, hey, when is this event going to start? They said, oh, it's actually at this link. This is directors of Australian. There was 5,000 people registered. 5,000 directors registered for that event. And it just took one link to say, I'm trying to get on, I'm trying to get on, trying to get on, not thinking, not increasing your default reaction, not increasing your skepticism by default. And I don't even know how many of those directors are companies that AZO partners with that now could be compromised, that have my financial information, my intellectual property, and have a direct impact on my people. This is happening, and it's popping up, I'm sure, on your news feed and popping up on your notifications. What is the shocking reason we're all getting hacked? Because many of us are actually not educated. And the government is trying to do something about this. They're increasing the penalties, or trying to introduce penalties for serious data breaches. Now, that currently hasn't happened in the energy industry, but you can guarantee that is going to come. You can guarantee that is going to come. And basically, if somebody looks at most companies, most hackers need 5 hours or less to break into enterprise environments. And that is because our posture is so incredibly low. In fact, this was one of the biggest business risks identified for 2022. Did it happen?
Yeah.
You bet. Have a look at all the events that have happened in 2022 and look at the increasing frequency of those events. When I go back from January right up until this month, there they are. Bunnings, Microsoft, the NDIS, Deakin University, one of AZO's microgrid projects. LastPass, one of the products that we use. Cisco, which is a product that we use. Twitter, I don't really use. Who uses that anymore? But TikTok, I definitely don't use that. But Uber, I use all the time. Optus provides secondary services to some of our sites. Medibank is literally my health fund. Vino Mofo, that's definitely a high risk for me. And Fortinet, which we use on almost every utility scale solar farm in our portfolio. You think this is going away? It's only going to increase. And I'm sure many of you, if you're anything like me, you may sometimes get emails like this. Well, if you look very closely, this is my EA getting probably a standard email from me like, hey, do you have any time right now? But when all she has to do is click on my name only to find out that someone is actually trying to get information about the chief executive from her EA. And the way that they got that email literally was, most people are first name dot last name at domain.com. It's pretty easy to find out how to get in touch with my EA on LinkedIn, isn't it? Very, very simple. And once phone numbers get published, I get, how many, raise your hand, I promise you I didn't have anything this time. Raise your hand if you get prank phone calls. Like everybody, my phone is ringing off the hook now for people that are trying to break in. This is affecting all of us. And the reason why it's important for the energy IoT landscape is because everything is connected to everything. And that's exactly the direction that our previous speakers are trying to tell us to go. We will be better off having more data. We will be better off having that data in real time. But because of that, there's an incredible security risk in all of that. So when I think about our company, and I want you to sort of think about your company for a moment, you might have cybersecurity networks somewhere there, and then you say, oh, it might influence energy management, electrical engineering, power automation, digital systems. That's fine. But the actual model that we should be using looks more like this. Cybersecure networks need to be overlapping every discipline, not a separate discipline, but impacting every single discipline. When we think about the energy IoT reference model, generally this consists of operational technology on the ground, energy services clouds like AZO's EnergyX platform, and then energy business systems like some of the ones that we've actually seen so far in this session. And any of these entry points, up or down, are places that a cybersecurity actor can enter into our new energy economy and actually make a massive impact. Any of these entry points that are unsecured can be an easy way to get into any of the other systems, whether it's entering through a market distribution, O&M platform, coming in through a simple camera or a router. How many people have seen a inverter get installed with like a D-Link router shoved into the corner, right? Some people have. These are home automation levels of security that are being used in digital energy systems. This is happening. And we only have to look at the Optus hack. How did they get into Optus? An API into their connectivity platform that somebody left open because they left the company and forgot to close the back door and lock it. And that's exactly how that breach occurred. So there are many entry points to actually attack the landscape that we are all in. And it is notable that power and energy are a big target. For example, Deloitte, you can download this off their website, Deloitte Insights, they've published an entire white paper on managing cyber risk in the electric power sector. I highly recommend that you download that and have a look. It's not a very long read. But I would like to quote from someone, one of the publishers of securitybrief.com. As operational technology, that was that bottom right in the diagram, as operational technology becomes more networked and connected to IT systems, attackers can access and control systems operating critical infrastructure, such as power grids, wind farms, pipelines, and refineries. Our research finds the energy industry is waking up to the OT security threat, but swifter action must be taken to combat it. Less than half of energy professionals believe their OT security is as robust as their IT security. We need to wake up. So what is AEMO asking us to do? Well, anyone that's involved in utility scale solar farms, you will notice, and you released an update in April, they released an update to the AES-CSF, which is the energy sector, which we're all in, the energy sector cybersecurity framework. And if you look close at what they're saying, look at how some of the themes that are making the impacts come on the bottom graph. The digitization of energy businesses, we're all doing that. Ongoing use of legacy infrastructure, we have a lot of that. The convergence of operations with informational technology, and increased connectivity to make a decentralized grid. These are all the things that we want to do. But each one of those things introduces an equal and opposite risk. Just have a look at the graph that they put up there. You can look at it in your own time. But I would like to quote again, this is from the Secretary of the Department of Home Affairs in Australia. It says, the threat of a cybersecurity attack on Australia's critical infrastructure is immediate, realistic, and credible, and could take down the nation's electricity network. So the AES-CF categorizes, of course, they're not all made the same, but the AES-CSF framework from AEMO have categorized these various different things. So for example, look over my shoulder here, a retailer has a different security profile to a DNSP or to a transmission service provider. These things move into different levels of risk. However, they all have some degree of risk and they all impact one another. And the way that they have outlined this, and you can have a look at it yourself, the way that they have outlined this is they've wanted to move through this simple matrix. So the practices and anti-patterns increase your maturity level, called MILS. And that gives you like some points, so it's sort of like gamifying the cybersecurity. And then a certain amount of those points lands you in the ability to get a security profile. Most foreign-owned or foreign-invested cyber assets are being asked to meet at least security profile 1, and some that don't meet certain requirements are actually being asked to meet SP2 and greater. And when you think about the broadness of how this is affected by what we all need to be able to do and remind each other of, it falls into these different domains. I'll give you sort of an idea of how those domains are split out. There's actually 10 domains, and the Australian privacy management domain. So I'll just put them up now so you can sort of see how it's the Australian privacy management domain is its own bottom right. But there are all these different domains: risk management, cybersecurity program, workforce management, identity, asset management, threat vulnerability management, situational awareness even. This is sort of like training, and of course event and incident response, real time or otherwise. So these are all these different domains, and there's a couple more on the right side. So these are all different domains. They're disciplines, if you will, of cybersecurity that all relate to the energy sector. And historically, we just have not been ready to implement them. So when you have a look at the percentage, we look at managing cyber risks in your organization, 100%. Managing third parties, missing 20%. Managing assets across the organization, missing 15%. And the list goes on. These are all of the holes of what is normally coming out of audits to compliance. We have all the green to close before we feel like we can have a secure energy sector. And look at all of the people that are involved, that have to be involved. The Chief Information Officer, Security Officer, Control Systems Engineers, SCADA Engineers, Risk and Compliance Officers, Legal Counsel, and again, the list goes on. So this is a group-wide, company-wide responsibility, and we have a long way to go. So the pitch today is to increase your cybersecurity posture, because whether it's in Australia or back home in the US, cyber attacks and ransomware, we need to protect our energy infrastructure. We believe in the future on the right side, but we need to secure its ability to take us the distance. The Australian energy sector provides an essential service that Australians rely on for their well-being. The ongoing availability of energy is essential to maintain Australia's national security. And it would lead to a cascading consequence, or a series of cascading consequences rather, for a range of other sectors significantly impacting Australia's economy, society, and security. That's straight out of the Foreign Investment Review Board's position on this. That's how important. We want external investment to help us make the changes that this industry needs to make. And FIRB is saying you cannot underestimate the security that we need to make this actually happen. Okay, I'd like to just close with a few examples, and then we'll move forward. So when we look at, here is one simple example of a residential and C&I project. So we might have a standby generator for automated demand response. We might have a battery to participate in FCAS. We have solar inverters that are working together to obviously contribute to the renewable energy component. But look at how all the data flows. Look at all of the different data flows in this virtual power plant arrangement, or a site that can be hundreds of these sites at any time. There are so many entry points that could come in, and so many opportunities for someone to actually break in. So we need to just wake up to the fact, the amount of data that my fellow speakers have actually talked about, we need to wake up to the fact that this is a real risk for us. So let's talk about acting now. What can we actually do today? Hopefully this is our take home. One, I don't know, I didn't even know this existed until my principal network engineer in the front row here reminded me that there's actually a published Essential 8 from the Australian Cybersecurity Center. And what are they? These are 8 things that we can do in our organizations that will immediately close a lot of these holes. Application control, application patching, restricting administrative privileges, just because the guy goes, hey, make me an admin so I can make this change. Why do you need it? Do you need it today? Can somebody else do that for you? Patching operating systems, changing your Microsoft Office settings, user application hardening, multi-factor authentication, and performing regular backups. This is exactly in parallel, but like most things in Australia, more red tape than the United States, but even the United States has their equivalent. Even the United States has their equivalent for. So this is true in Australia, it's true in the US, and it's absolutely true everywhere. So let's maybe have a few things, that we'll certainly talk about this hopefully in the discussion, but I want you to look at yourself and realize that your human error is probably the biggest risk in all of this. Don't outsource it to somebody else. Don't make it the antivirus's problem or your IT's problem. It is your problem. You have a responsibility to protect me by protecting yourself. When we protect ourselves, we protect the rest of society. So let's put some examples out, and then we'll go into the discussion. So here they are. Here's my take homes. 1, everything is connected to everyone, everywhere. That is the world that we live in today, and it's increasingly becoming the future that we all want, but we need to be responsible with. The second principle, if we leave the back door open, someone will come in. 3, actors are exploiting vulnerabilities in our sector daily. It's happening. Utility scale policies should apply to comparable VPP aggregations. It's one thing to have one 30 or 50 megawatt solar farm, but it takes only 100 combinations of some of these smaller sites to make the equivalent exposed number of megawatts that can be attacked through those D-Link routers that are shoved into the enclosure next to the inverter. It's just an aggregation of more, but it's still worth the same amount to our grid. We have to believe that we protect our customers and partners and staff by protecting ourselves. Governments will hold directors like myself accountable as liable for breaches. This will only increase. And lastly, and we've talked about this in terms of analytics and the extra cost, except for the gentleman in the fourth row there. This does cost more money. It is expensive, but we will give you a copy of these slides. You can apply them, and trust me, the investment to secure is dwarfed by the cost of an incident. So we'd love to talk to you a lot more about these things. Come visit our team at our stand later. Ask some questions now, but some of these things are much deeper and a lot more difficult to discuss in a panel. So we'd love to talk to you. We've had to go on the journey ourselves. We'd love to walk with you on your journey too. So I'll leave it there.